We have a couple more days of the same weather before we really start to see a significant pattern shift. It will mean more rain in the valley, some high elevation snow initially, but then that snow level starts to drop just in time for the holiday week. And also, believe it or not, slightly warmer weather. Even though we're going to see some rain for the valley, we're going to bump up those temperatures. In the meantime, some patchy fog for the coast, gray skies and cool for the valley. For the foothills, mostly sunny. And then for the Sierra, we're still dry, but things are about to change again. Precipitation statewide still looking pretty good. This was really set forth by a soggy November. It's just at this point, we really need to get things going once again. December is one of the 3 months that provides 50% of our annual precipitation. So December, January, and February, we got to get that rain and snow coming in because it really does account for a bulk of the precipitation that comes in through California. So since October 1st, again, we're really looking pretty good with most areas above average. In fact, Santa Barbara almost 7 inches above average. But when you look at the northern part of the state, that's where we're really hurting because in general, we have a much higher annual precipitation on average for places like Redding and Eureka. And it is also the location where we have our biggest reservoirs to store that water. That's why this time of year is so critical, especially for Northern California. Looking at our future cast, things are about to change. So once we get into our Tuesday afternoon, we see bands of rain starting to pick up as the storm track sinks its way southward. What you'll also notice, though, is that it's largely a rain event for the Sierra. We'll see periods of high elevation snow, but we're going to see this as a warmer rain event that's coming in before we start to see some colder air work its way in deeper into the work week and then for the upcoming weekend. That will really provide the opportunity for some snow to accumulate for the higher elevations. But again, in the meantime, this is going to be a higher elevation snow event until we get into the weekend. Then we start to see the snow picking up. We've got multiple systems in the pipeline to really provide us with some wet weather and snowy weather throughout Northern California. Did want to put this out there, though, given the timeline, it does mean we could see some messy travel leading up to the holiday week. So we'll very closely monitor how things are playing out with that snow line. Highs in the meantime for our Tuesday are in the 50s for the high country. Moving down the hill, we're in the upper 50s to right around 60 degrees. For the central Sierra, highs are going to stay in the 60s, move in towards the valley. We're close to 50 throughout the central San Joaquin Valley. Central coast still looking pretty good here. Big Sur up to 76 degrees. Inland areas, at least just inland, we're right around 70. Now, once we move deeper into the valley, we're still dealing with areas of gray cloudiness, the low clouds that are just hanging in there, and highs in the 40s and low 50s. Bay Area forecast, we're in the 50s and 60s. Head inland, we're in the 50s for our Tuesday. Once we get to the northwest coast, that's where we start to see areas of rain developing. Highs near 60 along the northwest coast. On the north end of the valley, we're going to be still in the 40s, but changes are coming. Capital region, we're in the upper 40s to right around the low 50s. We've had almost 23, 24 days where temperatures have not really risen much because of the gray cloudiness that have pretty much blanketed much of the region. But those changes are coming as we look at that extended forecast. Periods of rain pretty much on and off through the next 10 days once we get into the weekend.
Hey there, good morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Evan Noorani in sunny San Diego, and the sun has been a little bit of something we're waiting to see out by the immediate coastline. That's because fog has been prevailing. But from our mountain cameras, we've noticed that that fog is quickly deteriorating. From east to west, we're seeing that clearing occur. Earlier this morning, we had a dense fog advisory. It stayed in effect until 9 a.m., but since about 7, we've started to see that progressive clearing. Prior to 7, from Mount San Miguel, for example, we had those clouds hugging even the western slopes of the mountains, but it was a quick pull back of that marine layer, and it will continue to be through the rest of the day. We do expect fog to be another issue tomorrow morning, but it's been, again, an issue mainly affecting our immediate coastline. It's keeping our temperatures along the coast more mild, back down toward average, but everywhere east of the coast, and in fact, the farther east you go, the warmer we've been getting over the last couple of days. Yesterday, we broke a record out in Borrego, pretty much as far east from the coast that you can get while staying in San Diego County. That previous record was from 1977, now 2025. seeing that daily heat record broken to 83 degrees in Borrego. Palm Springs got to 89 degrees. That was a 1980 record. So just goes to show that this ridge of high pressure is really having its effect on us. All of the wet weather that we've seen in the forecast and the greater big picture across the national map seems to travel over the top of that ridge, landing in Oregon, Washington, and passing down on the backside as well. But as that ridge stays in place, while it doesn't necessarily block us out from cloud development, it does block us out from a lot of those storms and a lot of the wet weather that is in the future forecast. As far as your high temperatures go, you can see that sliver of green right by the immediate coast as onshore flow prevails. And as temperatures stay in the 60s, 66 is right around average for a lot of our coastal communities. So it's this dichotomy of seeing coastal communities right around average, whereas our eastern valleys are 10, 15 degrees warmer than average, all the way up to 80 in Ramona and Campo this afternoon. Borrego Springs warming up to 84. That's more summer-like than winter-like we're headed toward. But we do have the possibility of some wet weather in our future. Not necessarily the immediate future, but there's already talk circulating about what those models look like going into Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I will say, with 8 to 10 days to go before that storm actually makes its arrival, it's really too soon for us to be able to give many specifics. But what we can say is that it seems like by the time we get to the beginning and middle of next week, we'll start to see a dip in the jet stream. Temperatures will cool down, we'll get toward cloudier skies, and maybe see some of that wet weather transpire. But again, too far out for us to be able to say what beyond the next 7 days looks like. In the meantime, enjoy this 7-day forecast. Dry skies day over day. We do have a weather impact alert simply because of the dense fog that we've been noticing along the coast today and tomorrow. Might lead to some hazardous driving conditions. You do want to slow your speeds down as visibility has been below half a mile in many cases. And we've even noticed some drizzle out there. Inland, it clears quickly. We get to the low 80s by Thursday. Might have a brief stretch of Santa Ana's for Thursday and Friday. That'll help to give us a little bit of a boost in temperatures. Temperatures will start to slide by the weekend and cloud cover will increase too. Remember, late night, early morning hours, it's been chilly. Grab a coat. It's been helping people out tremendously in the overnight stretch. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, I'm meteorologist Brenden Mincheff, and we're going to talk about what an atmospheric river is. It's a term you may have heard, you may not be familiar with it, but you may have heard the term Pineapple Express. Not every atmospheric river is a Pineapple Express. However, as we will learn, every Pineapple Express is a type of atmospheric river. So as we look at the map, these are most common along the U.S. West Coast, especially in the wintertime. However, other parts of the United States, including the Gulf Coast and the Northeast, can see atmospheric rivers. And the Gulf of Mexico can act as that moisture source for atmospheric rivers moving up through the southeast and into the northeast. And sometimes you can get a nor'easter that can be attached to an atmospheric river. But let's jump into it. Let's look at the map. Well, when high pressure is sitting off the west coast, what that does is it kind of, for the most part, blocks the moisture from coming in. When high pressure slides a little bit further to the south, and especially when it's coupled with a storm passing through either British Columbia or the Pacific Northwest or even Northern California, what can happen is it can tap in to this atmospheric river. And what that is, it's a narrow band of moisture, about 1,000 miles long or so, and it can pull in a lot of tropical moisture into an area. For instance, this textbook example is showing it impacting California. And when that happens, it can bring a lot of rain. And if it's cold enough or your mountains are high enough, it can bring a lot of snow with it. This type of setup here, where it originates near Hawaii, is a Pineapple Express. Here's some more facts about atmospheric rivers. Atmospheric rivers carry 7.5 to 15 times the flow of the mouth of the Mississippi River. They vary. Some of them are stronger, some of them are weaker, but they are very, very wet systems, and that's why we get a lot of rain from these. And atmospheric river events are responsible for the majority of the water supply on the U.S. West Coast. Here is a satellite image of an atmospheric river. Again, this is a type of atmospheric river that we might call a Pineapple Express. It originates near Hawaii. High pressure sits here, and so it brings this moisture, for instance, here into California. But if your high pressure is a little bit further north, it can bring that moisture up into the Pacific Northwest. Again, this setup here is a Pineapple Express. So to be clear, a Pineapple Express is an atmospheric river that pulls moisture from Hawaii. But not every atmospheric river is a Pineapple Express. This one here, here's another example. You see the atmospheric river extending out from Hawaii, but that moisture is being pushed into the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. So Every Pineapple Express is an atmospheric river, but not every atmospheric river is a Pineapple Express. And we rank atmospheric rivers based on two things: by the amount of water in them and how long that atmospheric river is going to last. So a weak or level 1 atmospheric river is primarily beneficial, not a lot of flood risk, relatively the same for a level 2 moderate atmospheric river. By the time we start talking about a level 3, AR3 on the scale here, that's a stronger atmospheric river. It's both equal parts beneficial and hazardous, but as soon as you start working your way up in strength to category AR category 4, AR category 5 on the scale, well, that means now we're talking about atmospheric rivers that are mostly hazardous or primarily hazardous, meaning they have so much moisture and they're going to last for so long that the flood risk is much higher.